Hello, this is Matthew Drake. I normally don't do this, but in this particular case I wanted to give you a little message on how to read the drawing before I jump in. Here goes. The black represents the truth, the reality of what is, and the red are the lies that are made up by the left. This should be pretty self-explanatory, but just wanted to put this little disclaimer in there in case there's any delicate flowers listening to this. And I do not in any way condone violence, neither does Mr. Woods. So, with that out of the way, I will also say I've taken a bit of a hit financially just because of the way I restructured my Patreon account. Switched it over to a monthly basis. So if you want to help out the work that I'm doing, I would hugely appreciate that. You can go over to patreon.com/illustratedphilosophy to view all of the rewards that you'll get for supporting work like this. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy the art.
On Twitter, for example, there's a woman who, she's upset about the immigration thing, and somebody pointed out to her, well, were you this upset when Obama did the same thing to people migrating from Iraq, for 6 months? And her actual response was, no, I loved President Obama. What on God's green earth does that have to do with anything, right? So my view is, I don't think these people actually suddenly understand the merits of limited government, or that if I just talk to them nicely, they're going to get that. Now, if it were my uncle and he was having some insight all of a sudden, I would sit him down and say, well, look, now you kind of understand why I've been having this view, because maybe one-on-one, my uncle's a regular guy. He's not part of some, left-wing violent group or whatever. I might be able to reach him. But I don't think these people do get it, and I think it is necessary to point out the inconsistencies here, because why would I want to spend time collaborating with people who are just going to turn around and stab me in the back 5 minutes later? Who I want to see if they have principles or not. There's nothing wrong with that. So, for instance, this email that will, I hope, be a blog post, Brendan O'Neill was writing in The Spectator. Now, Brendan O'Neill, as anybody knows, is not a Trump supporter. But his point is, I don't get why people are so willing to let others whitewash themselves by comparing themselves to Trump. So, for example, Madeleine Albright. This is the woman who famously said, well, look, she was told 500,000 children seem to have perished because of the Iraqi sanctions. And we have all seen the 60 Minutes clip where she says, well, we believe the price has been worth it. And now Madeleine Albright is saying, I may register as a Muslim to protest what Donald Trump is doing, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon saying what a wonderful woman this is. So you forgot that she thought 500,000 deaths was okay? That's what Brendan O'Neill is saying. That look. In the warped moral universe of anti-Trump hysteria, in the historically illiterate world that has been fashioned by the protesters against him, what happens is Albright seems good, or at least better, because Trump is abnormal, and therefore the rest of them are normal. By portraying him this way, you are implicitly whitewashing everybody else. That's just a fact. If you're going to say this guy is just so abnormal, as Brendan O'Neill says, this out-of-control hatred for Trump doubles up as an uncritical conformist apology for the rot that came before him. It redeems barbarism. And then finally, Bob, he says this, more importantly is what this denormalization drive does for other politicians. It absolves them. It flatters them. It tells them that what they have done, the destabilization of nations, the destruction of lives, was normal, at least in comparison to this. The left's arrogant, aristocratic withholding of legitimacy from Trump by extension legitimizes his predecessors, including those who did far worse things than Trump has even countenanced. Now look, Trump has already started down a very bad foreign policy road. So I wrote an email about that saying, meanwhile, while people are protesting other things, the real potential disaster of his presidency is unfolding right in front of them. And they're so used to not caring what happens to foreigners, they don't even notice it. So I don't care. I don't mind criticizing the guy, yeah. But I'm not going to say, oh, it's a unique evil in the history of America. Oh, the only way I would say that is if I was an ignorant idiot educated in the public schools. I think the way you understand it is to realize something that it took me a long time finally to acknowledge, that maybe you are dealing with people who simply don't have universal principles. They have particularist desires. I want what's good for my group. And for my group, free speech is good. I want what's bad for that group. And for that group, suppression and muzzles are good. I think that's genuinely what it boils down to. It's not that they're hypocrites. It's like saying, and you get this all the time in a first grade classroom, the Puritans were hypocrites because they fled England seeking religious liberty, and yet they wouldn't give religious liberty to other people. Wrong. They were not seeking religious liberty in the abstract. They were seeking it for themselves. They were seeking to practice what they believed to be the proper Christian religion. At no time did they say, and we want to be a haven for all people who have oddball ideas. They never said that. So they were not hypocrites at all. And likewise, I think in this, maybe the left are not hypocrites because they genuinely don't believe in free speech. They never said they did. I mean, well, their parents said they did. And maybe their young grandparents in the early 60s said they did. But on the other hand, there are plenty of leftists who don't talk that way. And they're getting their inspiration from the new left hero Herbert Marcuse, who basically said you can't have free speech for intolerant groups. And by intolerant, of course, he meant everybody except himself. You can't allow that because they use the speech as a structural means of oppressing others. So we can't allow those people to express their thoughts. And so you do start hearing a bit of that now when we say, well, we can't allow white supremacists to speak. Look, Milo Yiannopoulos is a lot of things. He obviously is, by no non-hysterical definition is he a white supremacist. You don't have to like the guy. But for heaven's sake, point out to me where he has ever said there should be laws in place that privilege white people over other races. I don't see anything like that, and that is the only non-hysterical definition of white supremacy that there is. And that is the definition that every thinking person accepted, that definition, all the way up until the definition suddenly got changed in 2016. And frankly, this is very therapeutic for me to get all this out. All the libertarians on Twitter who are virtue signaling to make sure everybody understands that CNN may get something wrong once in a while, but this is an institution of American society. These are the sort of people who want to make clear that they respect our wonderful institutions and they don't like people who are disrespectful toward them. And boy, that Alex Jones, he sure is a joker and whatever. I'm not saying I agree with Alex Jones. I mean, sometimes he's right, but I'm not saying I agree with his approach or his style or whatever. But I have some sense of proportion. What possible reason would I have to go around denouncing Alex Jones, of all people, when the entrenched institutions of American society are at war with everything decent and lie 24 hours a day? Why would I possibly do that? And yet I'm surrounded by these libertarians who want to make absolutely clear that everybody understands that they have all the correct likes and dislikes, as if the regime is interested in making distinctions like that, as if the social justice warriors are interested in making distinctions like that. If you even slightly favor the free market, you're a neo-Nazi fascist. And they're going to get to a point where they're going to feel like you can be punched in the face, and all your little protests on Twitter about how sweet and pure and wonderful you are and you're not like those other libertarians, that isn't going to matter a thing. It's not going to matter. They're not going to make that distinction, so don't even bother.